So you've just run a bunch of sessions. Some went well, some didn't, but that's okay.
Next, we're going to use post-it notes to kind of collapse down that big mess of ideas into things that are relevant to specific parts or user flows in our app or site.
One of the reasons why UX designers like post-its a lot is just because it's small enough of a surface that you have to keep it as concise as possible and you don't get to fit, an entire essay on that. Grab a bunch of post-its like any true UX designer would do. What I like to do is actually to assign a color to each participant and write down each piece of feedback onto one post-it. So it should only ever be one point on one post-it and write them all down. You can summarize, but don't do it so much that you actually lose the point that this person was trying to make. Keep as true as you can to what this person has said without actually ruining the gist of what you're trying to say. Once you have all the points put down onto post-its, now what you want to do is to start grouping them together according to similarity. You shouldn't force it, so it's not about getting to as few piles as possible. It's just about anything that matches, you put them together. And once you're done with that, you should be able to see quite quickly which are the ones that have quite a few post-its with them and which ones just don't really have that many. So you should always stick within the task scenarios. So whichever task scenario it is that you've tested with should remain as is, and you shouldn't mix them all together. So once you have the little piles, what you can then do is to try and sum that up into something that's kind of like a problem statement. So what is the gist of the problem that these people have encountered when on this specific feature, on this specific page? And that will form your hypothesis of what the problem is. So the more post-its that you have, it signifies that, this many number of people had a problem with it. So the more post-its there are, the more your problem probably exists and needs to be fixed. You're going to have a couple of pieces of feedback or a couple of comments that no one else has had. Those are probably the ones that you can disregard or not prioritize. So anything that is a bit of an outlier or anything that just doesn't seem to be as big of a problem are probably the bits that you should not pay attention to. So something that I really like to do is to do about 2 rounds of looking through the data. The first round is just grouping stuff and writing down problems. The second round is to re-look at what has been created or what has been grouped together and see if it still makes sense. So when you group things together, no matter what it is, you can always be either too specific or too broad, or you can sort them in a way that's not really relevant. So as an example, if you sort together all the data points you've gotten that's related to the payments page and you just group them together and you call it problems with payment page, that doesn't actually tell you anything. Instead, you need to sort them out into smaller groups. It could be a bunch of post-its that say, I could not find the checkout button. Or it could be a bunch of post-its that say, I don't have a credit card. Those are very clear problems that have a relatively clear solution to them.
Don't be surprised if there's a few things in there that you already thought needed to be fixed. We've just confirmed your gut feeling.
It's okay if you have some outliers or some stragglers or a couple of data points that don't seem to match up with everyone else. So if it's not relevant, if it seems like it doesn't quite fit in, then you can set it aside, but don't just set it aside just because it doesn't fit in with what you want. Set it aside only if it can be set aside. By using this simple physical method of sorting quickly, you can see where your users are getting stuck and what problem areas you're going to need to fix.